So, chapter 17 is about nurturance. And again, that connects to gender conditioning as one of the things we don't do as men is look to each other for direct nurturance. I remember it was I think Clinton, that was the first president that I saw hug another president, him and Al Gore. And, it was like a big monument. It was a talk. It was significant versus only men shook hands with each other. So grown men hugging, that can be different in other parts, in the other countries in the world for sure. But in the U.S., there was this, now it's pretty much common, but how much do you see men really sort of holding and nurturing each other, giving each other shoulder rubs or whatever? So we did that exercise early on before we started doing primarily corporate groups. And then it was the first shell group that we did in 2000 or 1999 where we tried the exercise and half the guys ran out of the room because they were nervous about let's just walk together as a form of nurturance. And so we pulled that exercise out of the caucus. But it's still a edge for men. Even in my men's group, I've tried that, and it's an edge for them because it pushes against homophobia to hold another man for a while or give him a shoulder rub or whatever. It's like it's still, that's a way to access where's our boundary around some of that homophobia and what nurturance do we not be able to give and receive each other. So something to think about, how do you do that? Where is that boundary for you, and how is that, helpful and not helpful? Chapter 18 is around sexual orientation, particularly as it intercepts religion, because that's been an interesting topic in many years of our caucuses as sexual orientation you can look at from a perspective of heterosexual privilege. And years ago it was called sexual preference, and it changed to orientation because the preference assumed it was a choice, and many gay and lesbian bisexual men never perceive it as a choice, and so that was a false sort of title. So sexual orientation, if you hear the word preference, you might correct somebody. We used Brian McNaught's films for many years. He's got some really good books out that just explains a lot of different things. In that chapter 18, I talk a lot about my growth through this. And growing up with the best friend I found out was gay, and talking about my nephew and then my twin sister, and working with that and my own understanding of it, and how a lot of people's views change when they know somebody personally that is gay or lesbian or bisexual. I think a couple things that are helpful is to know that the process of coming out is not an either or. You're not either in or you're out. There's a huge continuum that people can be passively out or passively in or actively out, and you don't want to out somebody more than they want to be out themselves. I think the other dimensions too here is where this intersects religion is interesting, because there's a couple fallacies. I think one is some people look at gay, bisexual, lesbian and say, why do you have to flaunt your sexuality? Why do you even have to talk about it? And we try to make that point in this chapter where I talk about, I flaunt my heterosexuality when I walk around the workplace and talk about what I did and my partner or whatever, and I tell stories and things. I'm not talking about my sexual behavior. I'm just trying to be myself. So are primarily most lesbian, gay, bisexual people, just wanting to be the freedom to not have to hide that their partner is a same-sex partner, or they have different partners sometimes. And it's like, for that ability to just not have to hide who they are, and think about the energy that it takes to monitor and not talk to your partner while somebody else is at work could overhear you, or walking downtown and you see a work colleague and you got to wander off from each other so you're not seen as together, and that's an enormous waste of productivity. And I gave several examples in the chapter of that. And I think the other thing tied to religion is that we don't agree on moral issues and all kinds of things. And that's a point that Brian McNaught makes, which is, people have different views on capital punishment, all kinds of different moral issues, and abortion, And if we tried to dichotomize ourselves on that, we would have chaos. So people co-work with each other all the time that have different perspectives, and we can do that too. It's a both and. You, as a leader, are responsible for creating an atmosphere where everybody feels safe and everybody feels respected. Even if you personally disagree with sexual orientation or some sort because it conflicts with your religious values, that's a private thing for you. But publicly, your behavior, you need to find a way to reconcile that and go into your religion and find the aspects of love and respect that can drive that. And if you're going to be in a role of a leader, then creating that safety is part of your role. And you can use each other with other heterosexual men to talk about that journey and talk about how they've worked that through, as opposed to you've got to put it on people, again, gay, lesbian, bisexual people to educate you. And again, the heterosexual privilege that, I don't have to worry about coming out to anybody. I can go to my funeral of my partner and be accepted, and be without, worried about and I can get paid time off for that since it's a formal family member. So all those things, some of it's changing over time with the changing rules. But that gets us into chapter 19, which is more gender identity. And so many of us are cisgendered, which means same. And so born into the identity of my gender to the body parts that I was identified with at birth. Transgender meaning cross or change. And some people aren't either one of those. Some people are gender fluid, so they relate more as men some days and women in other days, male or female. And gender non-conforming is a whole nother piece where I don't feel like I fit into a gender binary of that, which is where the whole concept of pronouns comes from. He or his or she, or some people prefer they because they don't want to be a he or a she. Now, if I grew up as a white guy and I have this low tolerance of uncertainty, I'm like, which is it? Either this or this. I think of black or white, and all of a sudden there's this continuum and all these different terms. That can be overwhelming. It's been a big learning for me. It's been a lot of studying, and I still have more learning to do, particularly around just getting more comfortable with more of a mixture of they pronouns and things. And it'll come with time, more experience. So lean into that with reading and having colleagues and talking to other people about that. The other part of chapter 19 gets into generational differences and just acknowledges that those have been playing out for a long time. And we had once had one company do a white men's caucus with younger guys in their 20s. And the first thing they said is, why are you training all the VPs? They're going to be gone in 3 years. And we're the ones that need this. And they actually found they had the same blind spots as we've talked about things earlier in the book. They were raised to be colorblind. They did not talk about race very often with their colleagues, and so they didn't know how to do that. And many of the white guys didn't really think about that concept of white privilege. And so the generational differences kind of raised to be colorblind, not really leaning into it, still had plenty of learning. And at the same time, their parents would say, well, they play with people of all kinds of different races, and they don't even see the race. And, I would say that the white folks don't really see the race. The kids of color probably do, because they have to navigate that world. And at times, they find it more and more at times. And so it's more of a white privilege to say, as my kids don't see race. And so notice what's really going on there too. And there's some more flexibility there across race. There's certainly attitudes changing about interracial marriage that are way different than some of the ones that were illegal in the 60s. And notice there's still plenty of work. As I talk to and dig into younger generations, they still have plenty of blind spots around those cross-race partnerships, and it's good work. The other thing that's interesting around generational differences, I worked in India last year with a client, and they had over a third of the people were under 24 in the workplace. So they said, besides gender, we have a lot of generational dynamics. And so we did some work in fish bowls with a younger generation, middle generation, and the older generation. I asked them, what are some things the younger generation is tired of? And they said things like, I'm tired of explaining to people that I'll be available after hours because I'm assuming I don't have any other commitments. My expertise is compared to more advanced people. I'm tired that people assume I'm not mature enough to understand things. I'm tired of having to prove my skill set. I'm tired of not being taken seriously because of my age. People expect me to do favors and think I'm always available. I don't have commitments. And then on the other side, you think about what they name some of the privileges of being younger generation too. People feel comfortable involving me in challenging things. They know I'll catch on quick, learn. People assume I'm tech savvy. People always consider that I'm up for new challenges and that I have better access to resources. So if you contrast that to the older group, I'm tired of deteriorating physical skills. I'm tired of people assuming that I'm limited in my ability to still learn. My ability that I'm considered outdated. I'm tired of the expectation that I would have the solution to all problems just because I've had the experience. When they talked about their privileges as older folks, they talked about the experience and the exposure they've had, the ability to appreciate all the wins and the loses and see a big perspective, the ability to deal with ambiguity. And we asked the middle group, well, what are you tired of? Tired of doing repetitive tasks, tired of being interrupted, and tired of assuming people know everything about my industry. And they sort of had it in the middle. They had some of the traits of the younger and some of the traits of the older, and they felt tension. Their privilege that they felt was that they felt connected to the younger generation on fun and technology, as well as the older generation on maturity and discussions on the business. And they got to learn from the best of both worlds, new inventions, new trends from the younger generation, and the time-trusted ways from the elder folks. And they said people believe that I can easily manage and deal with millennials or younger generations too, being in the middle. That's just a quick snapshot of that. And it's an important concept to think about where in our workplace do we have the best generational partnerships? What are those behaviors that helps? Where are people identifying what they are stereotypes of different generations, and where are they actually transcending and building real partnerships with each other? And that's that process of us putting each other in fish bowls in small groups and identifying their privileges and what they're tired of from the other generations, and then having them hear each other was a really powerful process. So you might think about how generational differences are showing up in your life as well as in the workplace, and where they can be, explored to find where can they build those partnerships, where are the best ones in your workplace happening. As well as going back to, how is sexual orientation viewed in your workplace? How out are executives up the ladder? What are the highest people that are out in your organization? That's a sign of how safe it is. You've got some executives who are CEOs who are out in corporate America, and then, some defense contractor companies have followed the changes in the military and have become more and more safer. Shift from don't ask, don't tell to more of a be who you are. So notice that there's certainly different pockets around the country in the US where the religion intersects more intensely. I've been part of really powerful conversations. I once facilitated a dialogue between LGBT ERG, Employee Resource Group lead, and a Christian network ERG lead out in the middle of a group of 45 people. And they talked about how they had avoided each other and how they could come together and approach each other. One realized he had wished that he would have been the one to approach the other one instead of the other one coming to him. And they decided actually to sponsor a prayer group together because there are Christian LGBT folks too. And so they did that as an event. Nobody in the workplace expected them to collaborate. And so again, we can find that main place of honoring some of your values personally, but also being an ally. And if that's a challenge for you, that's important work to do. So these are all important topics too. And of course, there's another concept that you could look at: Christian privilege in the US, since it's the dominant religion. My holidays align with most holidays. People know what my holidays are. They seem to respect them, and some people who are so used to having that religion be dominating, including sometimes people having prayer breakfasts, when those things are taken away because they're offending some people, they feel like they're get to lose who they are. And that creates tension too, because all of a sudden they're saying, how come you can have a pride group advertisement and I can't put a Bible on my desk? And part of that has to do with the difference between intent and impact. And what's the impact of any of those? Other people can perceive it as you're imposing that on me. And really, many of you are just trying to be who you are. But you have to be careful about what people perceive as your intent. So the intent is to create an inclusive, open workplace and to learn from each other, whether it's across religions. I know some workplaces that have been, reorganizing their bathrooms and creating prayer rooms for different religions and paying attention to, many people talk about events being scheduled on Jewish holidays, and most Christian folks don't even know that, and it's quietly happening. I remember a caucus that we had scheduled on a Jewish holiday, and a man was Jewish that came anyway and spoke about that. So as a Christian person traditionally being raised that, I wasn't aware of that. So all of us have work to do. For an insider in some dimension, whether it's religion, knowing what the experience is of outsiders and how to partner better. And as insiders, helping each other educate about what we're not seeing that outsiders are facing. Again, shifting that educational burden to the insider groups for each other.